This is Twit.
Rick Smolan is our guest, one of the most interesting photographers. He worked for Time. He worked for National Geographic. But is best known, I think, for the Day in the Life books, a series that was just mind-boggling starting in the early 80s. This was one of the books that I think might have been one of the first books of yours that I read, From Alice to Ocean. What's the story behind this?
Well, when I was 27, I was sent by Time to do a cover story on Aborigines. And I walked out of my hotel room. There was a woman I was supposed to meet down the street who had worked with a writer already. And I walked out of my hotel, and the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen in my life was washing the windows of my hotel. And I was 27 years old, 3 cameras around my neck, beautiful girl.
What are you going to do? Take a picture?
I took some pictures, right? And she got really angry and told me where I could put my cameras. And so I apologized, which didn't seem to calm her down very much. So I left, and I went down the street, met the woman who was going to take me into the Aboriginal camps, spent the day shooting. Got permission from the elders to take pictures. And at the end of the day, she said, the woman working for me said, "What are you doing tonight for dinner?" And I said, "I'm going to go back and work on captions in my hotel room." And she said, "Well, a group of us that work with Aborigines are getting together at a friend's house. And you might be interested in meeting some of them. They could give you some ideas of other things you might want to shoot while you're here in Alice Springs." So I said, "Sure, it sounds great." So I got this address, and I drove to the outside of town, and I showed up this sort of abandoned looking building with the walls falling down. There was no roof on this building. I thought this couldn't possibly be the right address, but I kind of timidly knocked on the door. And of course, who opens the door but the woman who'd been washing the windows of my hotel, who was not happy to see me.
You're stalking me.
Yeah, it's like, "Put your damn cameras down. You can't photograph my friend." So I said, okay. I went inside and found the woman working for me. And I said, "What's with your friend?" And while we're talking, I said, "Look at the backyard, and this woman has camels in her backyard tied up." So I said to her, "Why do you have camels?" And she said, "It's none of your business." So I went back to my friend and said, "Why does your friend have camels?" And she said, "Well, she's got this crazy idea to walk from here, Alice Springs, 2,000 miles through the outback of Australia, out to the Indian Ocean." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "None of us know. Robin's this odd girl that showed up here a year ago. We worry about her. We bring her food. We come out and visit with her, and we're afraid she's going to die out there. She won't let us come." I said, "Wow, that's pretty crazy." And then at the end of the week, it was the day came for me to leave, and the woman working for me came up and said, "Robin wants to ask you a favor, but she's been so unpleasant to you. She's a little embarrassed to ask you." I said, "I couldn't imagine. What's the favor?" And she said, "Well, Robin wrote to National Geographic a year ago, and they never answered, and she wondered if maybe you knew somebody there, if she could use your name." So I said, "Well, I've met some of the editors at workshops. I've never worked for them, and sure, she can use my name for what it's worth." So I go back to the States, and I'm home for about a week, and the phone rings, and it's the editor of National Geographic. And the guy says, "We got this letter from this very interesting woman in Australia. We're thinking of funding her trip, but is she going to die out there? Is she a nutcase? Is she serious?" I said, "No, she's very intense, and I've seen her camels and her dogs and in her maps." And he said, "Well, since you guys are such good friends, would you like to be the photographer that we sent to accompany her on and off? You have to find her 4 or 5 times during the 9-month trip." So, Leo, it was the most interesting year of my life. This woman was so intense, so fascinating, so complex. It was like being with 5 different people.
Yeah.
I was never quite sure who I was traveling with.
Yeah.
She had really mixed thoughts about the moment she got the money from the Geographic. She immediately hated me because she felt she sold her soul to the devil. And it's like, wait, you asked me for a favor, and now you're angry at me because I got the funding. So it's a wonderful story. And she wrote a book about it years later after saying she would never write a book about it. And she was attacked by wild camels. She got lost. She ran out of water. My biggest fear is that she would die out there. Every time I left her, I thought this might be the last time I would ever see her.
Yeah. I mean, it's a wasteland.
Yeah, there's nothing out there. It's just, for a few Aboriginal encampments. But it's so easy to get lost. I mean, if the camels had run away, she'd be dead. If one of the camels threw her and she broke a leg, she'd be dead. If she took the wrong path and there was no water, she'd be dead. Plus, there's crazy people out there. I mean, there's no law. It's like the Wild West. If somebody, finds you out there, there's no police to go to for help.
Right.
And she did this trip, and she wrote this amazing book called Tracks, which has sold 1 million copies in 18 languages. And for years, Hollywood's been trying to figure out how to turn it into a movie. It was going to be Diane Keaton tried buying the rights first, then it was Julia Roberts, then it was Helen Hunt, then it was Nicole Kidman about 5 years ago, and they've just finished the movie now. It's called Tracks, and Mia Wasikowska, this wonderful young Australian actress who looks so much like Robin. It's eerie.
I've got some pictures actually of them.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, you could show those. Yeah, there they are on set.
Yeah, they are.
Yep.
Yeah. And Robin still looks gorgeous, and Mia and she have become really good friends. And they stayed pretty true to what happened, on the trip. It was really eerie because they actually, at one point, I went down to Australia during the shoot, and they'd actually manufactured the same clothes that were in my photographs to put on Mia and Adam Driver.
That was the record.
Yeah.
So I looked at this and I thought, is this one of Rick's pictures, or this is from the movie? This is Mia.
Which one?
This
Yep,
one?
that's Mia.
Yeah, but you would never know.
No, they look like the same person.
It looks like the same person. So there's Robin.
What's so funny, if you've seen Mia in any other movies, this doesn't look like the Mia that you saw in Alice in Wonderland with Johnny Depp, or Stoker with Nicole Kidman last year. She is a chameleon. She totally changes and morphs into each character.
And there's Adam Driver playing Rick Smolan. But you know what? That's good casting.
It's pretty funny. He's taller than me. He told me that he can't grow facial hair, so they actually had to glue on the beard every day. He's a wonderful. He just got cast as the new bad guy in Star Wars.
I saw that. Yeah, he's a wonderful actor.
Martin Scorsese just cast him in Silence last week.
He's suddenly hot. He's in Girls, and was great in Girls. Great in Girls.
Very funny. Yeah.
And I'm thrilled to see that they cast him for play. Now, does he have a big role? Are you a big part of this movie?
I'm sort of the pest at the beginning of the movie. I'm the annoying guy that is already bugging her, and then by the end of the movie, I turn into a good guy. It's better than the other direction, I guess, the trajectory.
And what is that? The actual camera you used? What is the camera?
Yeah. It's a Nikon Nichromat EL, I think. I have a Nikon, and I'm an old Nikon guy.
I love it that that's a vintage camera.
No, they wanted exactly. That's the same car I drove back then. It was a Toyota Land Cruiser.
Wow.
They were just amazing how accurate they wanted to be. There's Robin today, so on the set.
And Rick.
It was really fun. Robin and I have remained really good friends over all these years, but it was fun. It was very surreal, as you can imagine, to watch these two young people playing us almost 37 years ago.
Wow.
The Outback hasn't changed. I mean, it literally, my pictures from almost 40 years ago look like they were shot yesterday.
Yeah.
There's a tiny bit of romance in the movie, but most of it is about their friendship.
That's really neat. That's really neat.
It's coming out. It's coming out here on September 29th.
Is it going to be called Tracks? What's it?
It's called Tracks, and it was just a hit of the Venice Telluride and Toronto Film Festival, and the Weinstein Company, that picked it up. It's actually, the movie has been made by Seesaw Films, the guys that did The King's Speech. So if you saw that movie,
loved that movie.
It's wonderful. They I haven't really been around Hollywood very much, but these people were so dedicated and so sincere, and so obviously they have to make a movie that's entertaining, but they were trying to make this as when you read about James Cameron taking the moldings of the Titanic and building who would know, who would care?
Right.
And when I showed up on the set, they said, we've taken your photographs basically and created many of the sets. And it was like walking into my own still photographs. Some of it was just so...
That's mind-boggling.
It was hard to believe. It was hard to comprehend. For a photographer, you can imagine how strange that must have felt.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And are they going to re-release, or are you going to re-release Alice to Ocean? Because
it's funny, I'm doing a new book right now called Inside Tracks, which is, instead of it being a tall vertical book, it's a horizontal book. The first half of it is images, some of the best pictures from Robin's original journey. The second half is, there was an amazing photographer named Matt Nedheim, who was the stills photographer on the set, who's a great journalist. I mean, his pictures do not look anything like the usual boring, movie set photographs. And then Mandy Walker, who's a cinematographer, the filmmakers gave me permission to go in and actually extract frames. She shot on film. It was anamorphic Panavision. I sound like I know what I'm talking about. It's basically good, the bad, and the ugly. It's very, very large, long format. So I'm able to extract scenes you're seeing there behind you as if they are still photographs. So the second half of the book is telling the story of the movie with the script. It's really fun.
Here's the original photo. Here's the recreated set. Wow.
And again, the same thing with Erasmus. So you can point there's going to be an app that you can point at the original photograph of Robin writing the letter to National Geographic, and then it plays that scene in the movie of Mia playing Robin writing the letter to National Geographic. I
really like that idea. It really brings a book to life.
Yeah,
and yet I don't want books to die, because there's something about what you get with the print that you could just stare at. Just like when I was a kid, you can just sit there and get sucked into it, and you can't do that with digital for some reason.